Namaskar and welcome to this exciting show on Sattology, debunking mythology. Today we have a very special guest and we are going to talk about that how Hindus, we're talking Hindus, so many of you not from the community, but we're talking from one viewpoint today, that the oldest surviving culture, which is Hindus, and they have, even though they have the best intentions and they're always law abiding most of the times, all the times, but they are always on a back foot. Like somehow they don't take the initiatives when it is needed, when their culture coming from Bhagavad Gita and Mahabharata Ramayana is full of proactive stories. It is very difficult for a common man to understand why the common sense is missing, and uh, and sometimes it does create anxiety in terms of what is going to happen or what should happen. So we have a very accomplished guest, a writer, thinker, Nithin Sridhar. Let us welcome him. Namaskar, Nitin ji.
Thank you for having me here today.
So Nitin, this is such an important thing that when the opportunity strikes, people do not, Hindus don't take initiative, and when the opportunity goes away, they expect it or they yearn for it. So what is the where why is that weakness when the Shastra is very clear? Ram and Krishna are very clear if they follow.
See, I think this issue, the problem here has to do with the kind of history we have had in the last 1,200 years, more than anything else. uh, in a sense, we have been kind of de-enfranchised from power. We have been staying out of power for a long time. We have kind of forgotten what power is. We have forgotten the power play itself. And if I may use this term, we have been dhimified. I like to use this term dhimified. Dhimmi historically means in a Islamic society, dhimmi has a second. Is a second class citizen, is a non-Muslim second class citizen who is forever subservient to the mainstream Islamic majority. So, for a long time, we have been under Islamic and then British colonization, such that we have the whole society have become kind of dhimified. Our ancestors fought hard. They fought. That is why we have survived. It is not coincidence that we survived. We survived because we have had the kshatriyas fighting, the brahmanas fighting, the shudras fighting, the vaishyas fighting. We have the whole society continuously fighting for retaining our way of life. But somehow I think when the Britishers completely ruined our Indian indigenous education system and replaced it with the English education system, creating an elite of sepoys, and this was further carried out in post-independence using Gandhian aims and Nehruvian secularism, etc. We kind of accepted this new role. You kind of accepted this defeatist attitude. We kind of imbibed the Christian ideology that meek shall inherit the earth. Our Hindu ideology is Veera Bhogya Vasundhara. The courageous, the strong, the willing will enjoy the earth, but the Christian ideology is the meek shall inherit the earth. So there is a fundamental. We are still a colonized society. We may have attained political freedom, but we are a colonized society, and I think this is the reason why we find very few voices in the Hindu society. There are voices, there are prominent voices who are fighting, who are dedicated their lives for the preservation, for the promotion, for the protection of Hindu Dharma. But society as a large is largely sleeping. It is still now some kind of they're waking up, but still the large portion is still sleeping.
So the waking up is so long. I mean, it's huge. I mean, the years are passing by, and the world is getting split decisions people are taking. And sometimes, sometimes it is felt that the other communities They are much more strategic in their decision making process. They move like on a chessboard, and whereas Hindus are left reacting. And in like the countries like Afghanistan, which are full of Hindus, and majority Hindu majority areas like Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh are all lost. And within India, a small Kashmir Valley is lost, and some parts of Bengal are lost. And there, as soon as other communities become majority, they remove every single instance of Hindu symbols to such an extent that the violence is accepted by the society. And I do not know, we may call it Stockholm syndrome, but the Hindus, they already concede that their others are going to be violent when they know that they can also protect themselves.
See, it's a funny thing what is happening. Uh, the other side has a long-term strategy. They are playing an infinite game, whereas our vision is limited to next 5 years or next 10 years or at best 20 years. And even there, we do not have a civilizational vision. But they are playing this game, playing this civilization war to win. And the Islamic conception of Darul Harab and Darul Islam, or the Christian conception of Christianizing the whole world. They have this targets in mind, and they're willing to put their time, energy, years, decades, centuries to it. So India is basically an unfinished agenda for the Abrahamic ideologies, and we are the last polytheistic, we are the last threat in the world, so to speak, to this project. But unfortunately, our side does not realize the magnitude of the situation. They do not realize, they kind of accepted the history as made in a permanent ink. I'll just give you an example. Recently I did a talk on the topic of why India should embrace dharmic expansionism as its geopolitical goal, wherein I basically argued that we should not think about whatever geographies and cultural spaces we lost in 1200 years. That is, you said Pakistan, Bangladesh, Afghanistan, and all these areas. We should not take this as a permanent thing. These were our geographies, and through this long civilization war, we have lost them. Yes, but we should have a vision, a long term vision to regain them back. And what I mean by regaining is a geopolitical regaining, geographical regaining, as well as cultural regaining, as well as demographic regaining. And while I was explaining this, and after I explained this, the one in the question and answer session, one of the viewers told me, look, India has never conquered any country. We are a peaceful nation. I think we should not do these things. What you are saying, we may just try to influence them in a soft way. See, this is the kind of thinking. I did a 1 hour, 1.5 hours, 90 minute session on debunking this myth that India has never conquered a nation. India has always had this Gandhian version of ahimsa as the goal. I showed examples of Cholas going out in a naval expedition and defeating the Sri Vijaya Empire. I showed the examples of how in Arthashastra and in Dharmashastras like Manu, etc., they say that king has to be a Vijigishu, a conqueror, and his goal has to be become a Chakravarti in a kind of a world conqueror or a global superpower, to put it in today's terms. Our geopolitical thinkers of the past never advocated a Gandhian ahimsa for a nation. See, ahimsa that Mahabharata and others speak about is a personal virtue at an individual level. It is not a geopolitical ethical issue at all. So, in geopolitics, self-interest is supreme. And we have this Chanakya Sutra which says Sukhasya Mulaha Dharmaha, Dharmasya Mulaha Arthaha, Arthasya Mulaha Rajyaha. So it's basically saying the source of happiness is dharma, but the source of dharma is artha. Artha means here power. not just wealth, it means power. And the source of power is Rajya. So it is the duty of a king to to increase his power, to enter the power play, to enter the big games, as we say today, and not to shy away from the using of power. So I think this we have been trained in a sense through our education system, through our current narratives, that what happened in 1947 is an irreversible thing, and we have to just get on with it. The worst part of this issue is that a lot of people, lot of Indians are willing to let go of, say, for example, Kashmir. They are willing to let go of Kashmir in the name of plebiscite. They do not. So so this thinking is disastrous because it is never ending. It will not end, and it will completely destroy India. It will completely destroy Hindu civilization. That is the end goal of the Abrahamics. That is the end goal of the Islamists. That is the end goal of evangelists. That is the end goal of the leftists, the culture Marxists, and everywhere. So it will be inevitable unless we wake up, unless we take charge of our own lives, our own future, our own civilization.
What if Hindus start demanding Pakistan back, Afghanistan back, and use all powers, including military and intelligence, to get that back? Because Hindus do not know that Mahabharat was spoken in Takshashila by Vaishampayan to Janmajaya, that and Vyasdev was listening. And after the Mahabharat war was over, then Janmajaya came to Hastinapur. After the entire Mahabharat recitation was over, Sarpyagya was over. So it is such an important place. Takshashila was established by Bharat Maharaj. It's in Kaikeyi Pradesh. And the entire going from there to Nuristan in Afghanistan and further west. And Madhya Pradesh was on the west of Takshashila, of Keke. So when you say west of Keke, that is most of the Iran today, which is known as Parsik at that time, and going up to Syria, because it is when Nakul travels to his Mama Shalya's place, which is near the ocean on the west, not on the south, on the west. Because Sindh was Jaidrath, and Jaidrath has a huge kingdom going west, again touching some parts of Iran. Uh, and so this is the history of India. Now, if somebody was to say Hindus want this back, the change of mindset is needed. The entire Pakistan and entire Afghanistan belongs to Hindus, including some parts of Iran. What that change of consciousness, how will that look like? Like, it's interesting to see, like, what will that change of consciousness, because we have taken those borders as sacrosanct. But they don't take borders sacrosanct. They वो खुल के आराम से enter करते हैं. We have to put BSF there to stop them. But they don't put so much, they are just scared of the Indian armed forces, but they know the Hindus will never cross the boundary. What if that mindset changes? The Hindus should start crossing the boundary.
Yes, I think this is something very interesting and fascinating to me to think and ideate. See, we need to differentiate between two things. Whenever this idea is pitched up, the first thing that is said is, uh, don't talk nonsense. Talk practically. True. This idea is something, you cannot achieve this in a day or a two, or even in a decade or 2 decades. No, it is not true. It is not possible. Yes, but why are we limiting ourselves in a for just a decade or a 2 decades, right? We should think in terms of centuries, and that is how. See, I was reading recently a book on China's strategy of 100 years war of China. I forgot the author's name, and it mentions how in 1940s and 1950s, the China created this vision of 100 years. They want to become a world superpower. Why cannot we have this vision? See, the Sangha organizations, the RSS and all, they speak about Akhanda Bharat. It is a vision, but unfortunately, it mostly lies on the paper. What we need is to go beyond this papery kind of just a vision. We need to have a more concrete terms and what it means on the ground, right? And this is not something that you and I can do at the individual level. This is something that has to be done at the highest political leadership, highest bureaucratic leadership. We need to have chart out different scenarios, chart out different plans. We need to have a grand vision. Unfortunately, the 5-year cycle of democracy uh, poses a lot of obstacles to this. But nevertheless, very basically, what needs to be done is we need to come out of these self-imposed kind of moral obstacles that we have, moral boulders, I should say, because which we have ourselves placed in front of us. I mean, this is basically rooted in misleading notions about ethics involved in the question. uh, People have a problem. See, when we speak about, say, reclaiming, undoing the partition, reclaiming Pakistan and Bangladesh. Just imagine this. We are speaking in theoretical way. What does it mean? Yeah, geographically, politically, yes, but it should also happen demographically. Let us be honest. Otherwise, uh, joining Pakistan and Bangladesh to Indian mainland means it would be a disaster, because it would increase uh, the Vishesh Samudai's percentage, demographic percentage, and it would place us in a kind of minority. It would be huge issue demographically. So we need to rectify it by changing the demography of the place, and that has to be done by one way or the other way. People may find this assertion kind of extremist. People may find this assertion problematic, and they may impute all kinds of nonsensical and extreme uh, kind of views to this. But all I am saying is, same thing can be attained through different means. And those who have issue today, when I'm putting forward this proposition, what about how we lost these areas? Did we lose these areas peacefully? No. The Hindus were converted at the end of the sword. Hundreds of thousands of Hindu women were raped, taken into slavery. Hindu men were killed in the battles. The history, how we lost this, is a history of blood, history of loss. It is a bloody history. It has been violent history. Our ancestors shed their blood to save our lands, to save our sacred places, and they lost it, yes, but they had a kind of a desire that perhaps it would be regained back in the future. What about that? So, and if we are, so just is it the case that today we can simply forget the history and move forward as a peaceful nation? No, because just because we are professing peace and ahimsa does not mean the other side is also professing that. If it were that were the case, then we would not have terrorist attacks in India. We would not have the Kashmir issue, wherein the millions of Kashmiri Hindus were thrown out of their own homeland, and this would be repeated. And we have so many love jihad cases across India. What is this? What is love jihad? It is attack on Hindu civilization. Everywhere this is happening, and we are sitting as ducks. We are sitting ducks actually in this civilization war, because we alone have been fed in this misleading notions of ahimsa. That is what is Gandhian ahimsa, I call it. Because wherein we have become defenseless, we have become weak, we have kind of by subscribing to these misleading notions of ethics, we are kind of dimmified ourselves further. So we need to come out of this mindset which thinks in a which conflates personal ethics with geopolitical ethics. Geopolitical ethics works in a different way, and their civilizational interest, civilizational future is what matters, and sometimes tough decisions have to be taken. But of course, this does not mean that I'm supporting some kind of violence per se. Kind of supporting some kind of bad things to happen everywhere. No, all I'm saying is, even Chanakya says, as Kautilya says in Arthashastra, there are three kinds of uh, Vijigishus, or the conquerors: Dharma Vijayi, Asura Vijayi, and Lobha Vijayi. Lobha Vijayi does it for wealth. Asura Vijayi does it to just kill out the opponents. And Dharma Vijay does it for the sake of Dharma. He uses the Dharmic means. We can be a Dharma Vijay. In fact, we alone can be a Dharma Vijay. China is clearly a Sura Vijay. US is clearly a Lobha Vijay. If there is any nation who can challenge them, it is India. And if there is any nation who have a strong Dharmic fundamentals, then it is India. But we have to enter the big game, big political play, geopolitical play, the power play, and we have to enter it in a more assertive, proactive manner, and not from a defensive manner.
So you said something, and I'm going to challenge you on that a little bit. So if others, so dharma definition is very complex. It's very subtle, and it changes. And there is a Raj Dharma, and one of the duties of a king is to always expand the territories. That is dharma for the king, not
Yes.
lose territory. So Indian army is strong, wins the territory, but the Indian government negotiates it and loses it. Happened in all the wars.
Yes, yes.
And the second area is that in if it was unthinkable, a few hundred years back, that India will be ever divided, but it got divided. It was unthinkable that Dharmic people will ever adopt a Brahmic philosophy. It happened, whether through force or through coercion. It did happen. I think the same way dharma sometimes means karma, instant karma, prarabdha, instant prarabdha karma. So the same way, people think how it's not practical. Very useless argument, because practical is something which is easily possible. That is practical. But sometimes there is no easy way. So if even if it is impractical, but some things have to be done. Like the classic example is Alwar of in South India. They did an unthinkable job of building that huge temple by all the means. Ramanujacharya's disciples. Now they showed the way. The practical thing in Mahabharata war would have been to make peace with Duryodhan or to live in a village. That was the most practical thing to do. But the Mahabharata war did happen. 1.6 billion people killed. That's a number given by Yudhishthir. People will doubt it, but that's the number in Mahabharata. I cannot shy away from not speaking it. So the definition of practicality depends on dharma. If you have to follow dharma, we have to do the impossible things, which apparently look impossible. So the way Hindus and see, we the people think of violence as dharmic principle, which is not. Violence is a sub-dharmic principle, because dharmic is not, we use violence for Krishna, for protecting Hari's or protecting dharma. Then it is perfectly legitimate violence. Otherwise Arjun would not be fighting. Arjun wanted to take sannyas. So it's a oxymoronic thing that we call meekness and defeat as practical, and taking an
Yes.
easy way out as practical. So when people say practical, that means they are trying to chicken out and run away. So the practical thing would be use the same means to bring others to back to dharma. Same means. It's
Yes.
like karma, prarabdha karma. One, if you're fighting with a strong man, if you slap him, he slaps you back. It's over immediately. So, so this practical thing is the biggest problem of the logical brain, because just like in a golf game, if on the fairway you have a small river, nobody plays the shots properly, even though the distance is less, because the mind is giving an illusion that there is an obstacle, and you people cannot cross that obstacle. Generally, it is difficult. Under than you, if you're somebody is experienced, they can do it. So. Isn't that a fault of the leaders, or we don't have the leadership, that they cannot explain what is practical or make the practical really practical?
See, when the leadership themselves believe in these misleading notions or like Gandhi and Ahimsa, then obviously looking at them for a guidance would be foolishness. I think because the leaderships how many people in the Indian leadership or bureaucracy at the top level, they're trained in Indic civilization worldview? I don't think hardly any of them. Do we have a process wherein, fine, today we do not have a Varnashrama system the way you used to have in the past. That is fine. But what we can have is what are the no what is the concept of Rajadharma, the Kshatriya Dharma, the competencies. All these things can be taught. And why can't we have a kind of a system wherein everybody in the highest levels of bureaucracy, highest level of political leadership, and the military, everybody goes through a course on Kautilya, on the Dharma Shastras, which speak about the Rajadharma. Why cannot we have? See, I have read that in China they have undertaken a huge amount of research for the last many decades into Chinese history, into their battle histories, into their political histories, on about strategy and all these things, and they continuously derive lessons from their past. I know that there are researchers who have worked on Kautilya, who have worked on this. Yes, they are definitely there. They are definitely military researchers, but we need to do it more. And I do not see anything which is available to train our political leadership at all. I mean, we are so much obsessed till now in speaking about Gandhi and Ahimsa, Nehruvian family, Gandhian family everywhere. The every other view gets trumped out, and I think that is the problem. Only we do not have a political leadership that have this civilizational vision, that have this civilizational spine, that have this civilization strategic thinking, which can put in place some kind of strategic vision, mission, and kind of plan in place. As you said, what appears impracticable can be made practicable when we put in efforts towards it. So I don't know if the current government is putting in effort, of course, because these kind of things do not come into public domain. If they are really doing it, I will be most happy. But from what limited understanding I have, is that I do not think anybody has this kind of any vision to reclaim, say, the geographies that India has lost, or to address the demographic issue that is within India. See, we need to address this internal demographic issue as well, because within the next 5 to 6 decades or 7 decades, Hindus could be minority in large sections of India, and that would be hugely disturbing phase. That would be hugely problematic phase. But I don't think any political party wants to touch it, because they are more focused on keeping their voter base and winning their next election. Right?
There is a prayer there, Namo Brahmane Devaya, Go Brahmane Taicha. So Brahmins will always be protected. Uh, it's a nature of the world. It's a nature of Prakriti. Brahmins will always be protected. But my question is, are the real leaders actually real leaders? We call somebody got a vote and he's a leader. Are they really leaders? Because sometimes even nowadays thieves can buy votes, and you know that many of the thieves are in power, and they, if you look at their history, you'll realize that this man was always a crook, and now he is called a leader. Now, expecting justice from a crook just because he got some votes, is it really leadership? So maybe the leaders which we are looking at are the wrong leaders. The leaders are somewhere else. People like you, people like others who are thinkers, they are the leaders. And believe me, the professional bodies, especially armies, they have lots of leadership because they have seen life at very close quarters. Only they are not scared, they're not worried, because I tell you, it's always the Asura has always been less in number. Always. Asuras have always been more in number. But Suras have always ruled the world. Because the world won't function. If the honest people are not ruling the planet, it is not going to function. Because they cannot ensure justice for all. Either it's a country of thieves, where everyone is a thief, everyone is stealing from everyone else, then it is peaceful. But if there are good people and bad people, the struggle is always going on. The dharma, adharma. So if the dharma side starts giving up, that means they never had hope. That means they were never astic. They were always, their hopelessness is a symbol of astic, nastic people. So, see, the current problems which every country faces, and India also faces the same thing. The good people are smaller number, and the bad people are a bigger number. It's the effect of Kali Yuga or whatever you call it. But the good people always control the other side. It's not the other way around. So whether it is needed a military strength, bodily strength, or whatever strength is needed, because Sanatan Dharma can only be protected by Sanya Shakti. You cannot do otherwise. This important concept has been lost. People have been taught Shastra are bad, keeping Shastra at home is bad, keeping Mahabharata at home is bad. All these things which actually help you have been taken away by the colonial powers. And the same rule is applying. The police comes and arrests a citizen who is just trying to speak openly, and it's just a jungle raj. So so who is a leader that needs to be redefined now? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the best definition of a leader is a kshatriya, kshatra dharma. I'm using it in a sense of a to define a quality rather than anything else. We can we can divide leaders into based on this varna framework into based on how they exist, how they live, and what is their motive. I think the much of the crop of current leadership are more, their vision is they think more in terms of profit and loss. The democracy itself is a setup which makes one to think in terms of profit and loss, profit and loss. It's kind of a Vaishya kind of a setup. Vaishya crop of leadership is more there. The but the kind of leadership that we need is a kshatriya kind of leadership, wherein because wherein it's not always about profit and loss, wherein it is much more than that. So my point is democracy has a lot of positives and a lot of good things, but it also has some kind of negatives as well. One of the thing is that uh, all the entire political leadership, irrespective of their parties, they are all concerned with the next elections at every cycle, and they are concerned with winning the elections, creating strategies to win the elections, and making money when they are in power, so that they can spend it on election expenses. I mean, I'm just making a general comment, not directed at any party or any politician. So this setup gives rise to a lot of corruption, and that is why a lot of the works do not get done. So whether we can make changes to the system or not, I don't know. And if yes, then how to go about it? Even that I don't know, because that is not my expertise. I cannot comment on that. But the point is, we need a crop of leaders. We need a crop of leaders with the kshatriya mindset that is needed. And at least what we can have, if the leadership is really serious, they should have some kind of a compulsory course or a compulsory thing that course that training that all the people in the politics can undergo, should undergo, wherein they're taught about the strategic issues, the Indic perspective of it from Kautilya, from Nitisara, from the Dharmashastras and all, on some certain issues, say 1 month 1 month intensive course or something like that, and kind of become more aware of the issues at hand. And I think we need to, as a nation, we need a commitment to our Hindu civilization, and unless that happens, none of what I'm saying will happen. We are now basically in a secular phase, still in a, where we are, India is a secular state, and we are romanticized. We have a romantic attachment to this idea, but we need to change this. Our romantic attachment should be with the idea of India as a Hindu civilization state. And once that happens, then things will start happening on its own. This is my belief.
The nature has made the body in which the head is at the top, and automatically all the bodily functions, they you know where I'm going to. And
Yes.
so where automatically the bodily functions, they behave if the head is in order. And according to varnashram, which is a very natural system of division of humanly qualities, the top of the brain, the top of the body is a brain. And if you look at Mahabharat and other examples, Vyasadev was the leader of all the Kshatriya, if you look at it properly. Because Vyasadev's instructions are followed by Yudhishthir, Narad Muni's instructions followed by Yudhishthir, and Yudhishthir became the biggest king on the planet. That was my last book, and I'm not self-promoting, but that's the book released. So
Congratulations on the book.
thank you. So so you see that the biggest of the biggest political leaders. So actual leadership is of the brain function. It's a brain function. Person who can deliver shastra as a smriti, shruti as a smriti, because smriti is created from shruti. It's
Yes.
said that it's not directly. So so those are the real leaders, not Bollywood dancing guys on the trees and somebody speaking good dialogues. Because if somebody looks at the hero of the Uri movie in a private life, they'll be disgusted by him. But everybody speaks the dialogue that he spoke in the movie House of Josh. Everybody speaks that. But if you look at the same person, because he was acting over there, that's exactly what is happening in the real society also. People who are not qualified or who are actors are in the big positions. And the real people like you and many people like you who are actually researching the topics, who are the brains of the society, are neglected. That is the actual impact of Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga means the people who are not qualified will be considered as qualified, and people who are qualified, nobody will listen to them. And that's how the society goes down and Satyug starts. We know that the cycle. So I'm not least worried about what will happen. But that's the way the society has been designed. Now, so these leaders have been neglected. Now, not in the big countries. Now, the America is also facing the same problem right now. Till now, they had a solid brain on the top, but that has now given way to this atheistic leftist philosophy or Abrahamic or whatever it is. Even they were ruling, but actually they never considered religion as part of it, anything. They were working on common sense. So isn't there a need to redefine the new leaders? Today, journalists become the leaders. How can a journalist be a leader? He's a patrakar. He just takes one information from here and gives it over there. Takes from there, gives it over here. Both are disturbed based on his own interpretation. so, so where is the new leader? A leader cannot be just a kshatriya because kshatriyas need guidance too. So the real leaders are people who can go deep into they can research, Muni, Rishi. These are the leaders of the society.
It is a very important point that you brought out. See, uh, unfortunate thing about today's Indian society, Hindu society, is that these real leaders who have dedicated their lives to understand the nuances of dharma, to understand the nuances of shastras, they are completely sidelined. So much so that a huge section of Hindus, they actually routinely abuse these dharma gurus, and they consider them as living in the past, fossilized people, museum show people, and they actually the Hindus have been trained to think. One of my friend Maragatam says, when a Hindu child enters the school system, he enters as a Hindu. When he comes out of the university system after a decade or so of study, his religion becomes changed. He comes out as a liberal. His entire thinking undergoes a change. So this is what is happening. say our Shankaracharyas, our Dharma Gurus, all or the scholars who are working in say Arthashastra, Dharma Shastra, there is hardly any takers for them. There are hardly people who approach them to have guidance. See, the Brahmana Kshatriya setup that you spoke about in Mahabharata, how Narada Muni and Vyasadev guided Yudhishthira, or how Acharya Kautilya guided Chandragupta Maurya, or any of these examples, that setup is simply non-existent today, because our political leadership, they go to different dharma gurus, for photo ops. They go to different dharma gurus during elections. I have seen in Karnataka so many, every politician is kind of religious, even those who are anti-Hindu in their politics. In their personal life, they are religious. They go to this dharma guru, that dharma guru. Yes, but in their policies, in their political policies, in their politics, they have no ethics. They have no care for dharma. They do not take advice from those who are truly leaders in a intellectual sense, who have dedicated their life for dharma and shastra. Because nobody cares for them. See, the way as you said, Vyasa's words were implemented by Yudhishthira. But if Yudhishthira, I mean, I'm just saying example, if today's Yudhishthira are like that, they are like that, I don't care what Vyasa says. Vyasa who? They will say. Vyasa who? I don't care. I will do what I want. I want to earn money. I want to earn this, that. I am corrupt. I don't care about Desha. I don't care about Dharma. I don't care about Devata. And just today, the BJP government in Karnataka has banned crackers during Deepavali. And this ban is going on in different states, the different governments or the high courts everywhere. The so-called party, which is so-called Hindu party, which is pro-Hindu, they are banning crackers just like everybody else. So that there is a problem. So the kind of leadership you are asking, it exists, though in a very what shall I say, sidelined, in a though very small section of people are like that, but still it exists. But the problem is the whole society have abandoned them. Nobody cares for them, and those who actually are loud voice. So we may not agree with everything they say. Let me say it properly. See, the example I'll give is Puri Shankaracharya. He is a very good scholar, very good authority on the Dharma Shastra, on Artha Shastra, and all the current political happenings. He regularly gives lectures on various issues. I am not saying we should agree with everything he says. Some of the things he may say may be unpalatable to some of us. That is fine, but there is no need to sideline him. There is no need to abuse him. See, I have seen these abuses of his videos, and there are a whole group who abuses him on Twitter and Facebook. That is not needed. Fine, you don't agree with him. That is okay. But there are a lot of things that he says which make sense. Politically, it makes sense. Geopolitically, it makes sense. But how many people go and consult him? I'm not saying every national decision have to be taken in consultation of him or any other dharma guru for that matter. No, that is not the thing. The point is the role of a guru is completely missing in our current political system, because that is simply not possible, because we are in a kind of a democratic setup. So this democratic setup is we have copy pasted the setup that is in the West, right? We have not indigenized it. We have not tweaked it to suit our Indic perspective, Indic worldview, and that is where the problem has arisen, right? So we can rectify this in a sense of how the Kshatriya training I spoke to about, that is to be given to all these in the people in the political leadership. Who will give this training? That training has to be given by somebody who is very well versed in the Shastras, very well versed in Dharma, who is like a guru, right? This it is very possible to do it, right? It can be done. And when we do this, perhaps in a long term basis, we will have a new crop of leadership who are very much rooted in dharma, and whose whose purpose in being politics is dharma samrakshana, loka samrakshana, praja samrakshana, and not in corruption and making money and winning next elections first.
So Kshatriya or the ruling class is made by these leaders. It's not just born; it's made. Pandavas were well trained by Vyasdev, Dronacharya, many Kripacharya, Ashwa, Dhaumya, Rishi Dhaumya, and ultimately Krishna also. They were trained. So, so Kshatriyas do not fall from the sky; they're created, and it is a duty of all these dharmacharya to create them. And one of the in Mahabharat war, when the when the people like Duryodhan become the leaders who are running for their own selfish reason, that's why Mahabharata is done. People say why violence is done. This Mahabharata is exactly done to remove those kind of people, because for the longer interest of the people, in Hindi they say, "Good good ke jeene se acha hai to marna hi acha hai." They say in Hindi. So if you have constant nagging going on, you cannot practice dharma in your, like, I'm talking about the ordinary person on the street. If there is no safety on the streets, if there is no law, then an ordinary person cannot execute his dharmic duties. He cannot go to the temple, he cannot buy things, the thieves are going to steal things from him. So it is a duty of both the varna, which is one of the brain, and the arms, to ensure proper protection, so that people can earn their livelihood, and society can progress as a whole. But when the people who are political leaders, they are actually not capable of ruling, almost like thieves, then there is no security for the ordinary person. There is no dharma can be expected, or justice can be expected by ordinary man who cannot protect himself. And then you completely disarm that person by passing various laws, that it is not good dharma to own weapons, it is not good dharma to self protect yourself. That is, dharma is law also, it means the law. You cannot have justice, and you keep looking at the person who broke the law to protect you from the law which you already broke. So where is the common sense here? I don't see the common sense here. So some very big author, very big great dharmacharya Prabhupada called democracy is demon crazy, and he's not wrong there, because it has failed to give justice to the last man. Now, even in the small case of police kidnapping somebody from their home and taking them to Alibag in India, Alibag is like the Jhumri Talaya. So when you say somebody, I'm going to take you to Alibag, it's a big insult in Bombay. So so even that, uh, even that is very wrongly understood. So without the brain, how can they function? And it is the purpose of the brain to make the arms function strong. So so how is this, uh, the complete oxymoronic thought, that you can have good leaders or good political leaders without good brains? What is your viewpoint there?
Yes, I definitely agree with you. Today, common sense, as they say, common sense is not so common. We have come to a very kind of a problematic situation. But yes, I completely agree with you that without intellectual power, there cannot be martial power, right? It is the intellectual power that should guide the martial power, where it should be applied, where it should not be applied. And we need thought leaders, but when I say we need thought leaders, I mean it in a specific sense. We need thought leaders who are rooted in dharma, who are rooted in shastra. See, we have a lot of leaders today, who are a lot of thought leaders today, who are otherwise very good, and but their rooting in dharma is at best shaky, and and so that we need to have that kind of problematic, because that leads to kind of distortion of dharma, or a kind of dilution of dharma, and that is not useful to anybody. We need to have train people. We need to have a intellectual brahmanas, and the intellect, and then the kshatriyas, a new crop of generation of people who are trained in these ideals. As you said, shastra and shastra should go hand in hand, and we need to have a new crop of brahma kshatriyas like Dronacharya as well, who were well versed in both shastra and shastra. So we need the basic point. The problem I see is society as a whole has moved away from Hindu ethos. It has moved away from Hindu shastras. It has moved away from any kind of training in Hindu systems, Hindu world. Previously, what used to have is in a few centuries before, while there were very small set of people who's dedicated their lives to study detailed shastras like Shruti, Smriti, and Darshana, etc. There were always very small number of people. The large section of people, the masses, they were very versed in Ramayana, Mahabharata, and Puranas, and these were enacted through the kind of Ram Leelas that is happening, that still happens today, and Ramcharitmanas. I mean, these texts, both vernacular in Indian, non-Sanskritic Indian language texts, as well as the things in Sanskrit language. So through drama, music, dance, the ideas in the Dharma Shastras were percolated to the ground. But that is as far as mass is concerned. But when we speak about those in power, the political leadership, uh, they were very versed in proper Shastra as well. They were very versed in both Shastra and Shastra. And the kings used to have the advisory councils with experts from different aspects of politics, different aspects, and they were each huge experts in their field. But currently, we we do not have this system, because, as you said, the democracy itself is such that we have one bureaucratic setup which goes through this UPSC exams and all those things, and then we have a political leadership which is elected through elections, but none of them are necessarily trained in a particular field. Now we are kind of rectifying this by hiring subject experts from the outside. But still, all these people who are trained and experts, they are experts in modern subjects. There are hardly any experts in the traditional Indian perspective. It may be on economy, it may be on polity, it may be on society, social issue. Just very simple example. Currently, we are having a discussion in the government is discussing on increasing the marital age of girls in India. The whole discussion is being carried out by on modern frameworks, medical frameworks, and all sorts of things. But there is no voice for Indic voice. There is no voice for a Hindu perspective, Dharma Shastra perspective. Forget, there is not a single person who is speaking about all this. The government does not listen to these views. They do not want these. So this is the problem. It is not that Hindu Shastra or Shastric perspective or Dharmic perspective is non-existent. It is that nobody wants them. There is no demand for them. There is no society has sidelined them. They don't. It makes no difference for them. And that is the root of the problem. If that changes, then everything else will start changing on its own. If a government decides that any policy decision regarding social issues, cultural issues, religious issues it takes, it has to be considered from a Indic perspective, from a Hindu civilizational perspective. Then it will sort out people who are experts in these fields, and we have experts in this field. It's not that they are non-existent. They may be less, but they are existent still. They will they can take suggestions from different perspectives. I am not saying that we should not take from a modern medical perspective or something like that. Let them do it, but let them add a Hindu perspective, Indic civilization perspective as well. And then we will see that some kind of changes in the mindset will be possible. All our laws today are problematic, the way courts function are problem. What is this banning of crackers? And then the banning happens only on Deepavali, not during New Year, not during the rest of the year. And there is no direct correlation. Even the scientific basis of that ban is at best shaky. You can always argue for a more eco-friendly way of manufacturing crackers, right? That is possible. There are many forces at play who are targeting Hindu practices. Some time back, cremation was opposed on the grounds of pollution. Just imagine. So every Hindu practice is being targeted, and we do not have a Hindu leadership uh, I mean, we have leaders, but we do not have a leadership with power. The people who we have voted for power, they don't give a damn about Hindu issues. Rather, the BJP government has overtaken temples in their Uttarakhand. Free temples, which are free otherwise, now they have been taken over by the government. So this is the ground situation in India.
So, so practically, so this is one area. So the in the past also, see, we can learn from the past. We do not know the future. In the past also, these great leaders like Vyasa, Narad, they would not come just to anybody, because they will make only those people stronger who are willing to listen.
Yes.
Not like today's leaders who would like to be heard in every single forum. We are Dharmic people don't have to go to every single forum to make themselves heard, because at the end of the day, everybody will turn to them. It's going to happen naturally. And if that doesn't happen, then society will collapse. So sometimes the Dharmic people have to learn to how to shut up, let the society go down, and when there is a severe problem, let them come back, because nothing is going to happen to people who are Dharmic. Nothing is going to happen, because they are protected by everything, by Prakriti protects them. So but once it goes down completely, then automatically people start coming back. Like in US now, there is a soul searching now, because because there is a huge surge of voter fraud. Now soul searching is happening, and but no think tank, because they have think tanks, like we call Dharmic community, they call it think tanks. And the think tanks, they are now thinking what went wrong, because the system is collapsing right in front of their eyes. But nobody is giving anything, nobody is going overboard, let me help you, nobody is doing that. So the penchant for Dharmic community to make themselves heard is like somebody who is a normal example, I'm saying a huge material scientist, and telling a small physics experiment in a small school lab, and telling them, let me come and help you, you should do it. No, they don't do that. They're sitting in their office, they're busy in something else. So I think that kind of a separate group, if it exists, which is purely Dharmic in nature, and strategic viewpoints they offer, and if the government wants to take their help to be successful, yes. If it do not, they work against the government and bring it down. Every time they come up, bring it down. So that way it restores the balance. And also the people which are the arms of the society, they also learn not to play, so they have to be serious about it. Anyway, it's a great discussion today, and many viewers have joined it live, and we'll continue this talk conversation. So anything, any closing words you have for the viewers?
Yes, just that I agree with you that we need to have a dharmic think tank, so to speak, and which creates a lot of materials on not just a political issue, but on cultural and social and every issue from a dharmic perspective. See, I am trying to do something like that in my individual level, but if 100 such people come together to do it, then the effect would be much more, uh, you know um, it would be hundredfold more. You see, my area of research and writing has been for the last some 7 years has been that, mm, I try to analyze different issues from a dharmic perspective. Issues like menstruation, issues like abortion, sati, issues like the current geopolitical happenings that is there, the homosexual marriages, and all these issues which are affecting our society. I try to research and write, trying to create a narrative in English language on the dharmic perspective. And whether somebody takes it or not, of course, it's not in my hands. But ultimately, we need to have a voice, a strong voice, which is putting out this perspective. And slowly, hopefully, people will be convinced of these. People will eventually come to these perspectives when they see that there is value in it. And I hope that this happens with time. And there are a lot of people who are working for dharma. There are a lot of people who are writing for dharma, and we have a diversity of voice even here. My advice or my closing comments to the viewers of this show is, I encourage people to take up writing. I encourage people to take up studying our shastras, you know, our texts and our tradition in a more thorough manner, if possible under a proper teacher. Even if otherwise, the text has to be studied with the commentaries and with lot of patience. It would be very fruitful in an individual sense, in one's own life, but also it will be fruitful uh, in a civilizational sense as well. So we have to fight. The civilizational war is here. It has been here for the last 1,200 years, and it is going to be here, and we have to fight it. Whether we fight with pen or sword or whatever means we have, that is okay. We have to choose our path, and we have to do what we can.
So thank you so much, and thank you viewers for watching. The video will be available on YouTube. You can comment there, and do subscribe, and don't forget to press the bell icon, because that's how you get notification. We have a lot of exciting content. So thank you so much, and all our videos
Thank
are
you.
evergreen. Evergreen. Namaskar.